Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
Result. Now, next time, if there is a same query which is being passed to the database, then instead of going to the database itself, it will get written from the Elastic Cache. That is how the Elastic Cache basically will work. So this is a in-memory cache. So the access time is very fast, and that reduces the load on the DB side. So there are two clusters which are supported: Memcached and Redis Cache. Now you really require knowledge on these two products to set this up. So there is a lot of configuration you can do.
Shrikant, how long it will be there in this Elastic Cache actually?
That is configurable. This is configurable.
Okay.
There is a lot of configuration which is available in Memcache and Redis Cache. Yeah.
Shrikant, is it work for all the databases?
Will it work for all the databases? It will work for MySQL, MariaDB. It will work for Oracle. I don't have idea. I'll have to check. But all the other databases, PostgreSQL, Aurora, it will work. Oracle, I'm not
Okay.
sure how do you configure it. Okay, so that is that also comes under caching services. So one caching we have seen, it is in the CloudFront form. This is at the database. Okay, database layer. So just keep this in mind. Actually, you need, when you go to developer side, maybe you will have to deep dive into this, how to set it up. So that is another service. Another service related to database, which is basically DynamoDB. So that is a NoSQL database. So we have seen in the relational database, there are different engines which are relational database engines. Now this is basically a NoSQL database. So there is no definite schema in DynamoDB. So it is a pair of key value pairs. It is a set of key value pairs which you can store in the DynamoDB. Okay. So let me just show you how it looks like. Create table. Now suppose, so now this is one peculiar thing about DynamoDB. It's unlike your RDS service, you don't get a dedicated instance. So it's a shared service. So what you can do is you can directly create a table inside this service. So for example, I'm creating an employee table, and then I need to give a partition key. Partition key is like a primary key. Okay, so it is a primary key. So suppose if I say employee number is my primary key, I can add another key which is called as sort key. So if I say employee number and name, then combinedly it will become my primary key. Okay? So it is called as a composite key also. So employee number, and suppose I say employee name, so that will uniquely define the records. Okay, so at present I will not do that, but employee name is my primary key. And now since you don't get the dedicated instance as such, it is a shared service. So how do you define the bandwidth or the performance, what you are going to get? That is in terms of the RCUs. So basically the read capacity units and the write capacity units. So how it is done is basically in the write capacity unit, it is measured in terms of 1 kilobytes per second. And in read capacity units, it is 5 kilobytes per second. That is one RCU. And there is a concept of strongly consistent data or eventually consistent data. So what is this concept? In any distributed architecture, what happens is when you write certain things, it is getting distributed across different instances or different underlying infrastructures. And when you are going to read that, many a times that it happens that when you write something and immediately you read, you may not get the latest data. It may be some old data. So that is called as eventual consistent data. So, and what is strongly consistent data, you will always get the latest data. That is called strongly consistent data. Okay. So this problem is there or limitation is there when you have a distributed architecture. So in case of read capacity units, it is treated as one RCU when you are trying to read 4 KB of data in a strongly consistent way. If you are trying to read in an eventually consistent way, then half of that will be consumed. So suppose for reading strongly consistent data, I consume 1 read capacity unit. So for eventually consistent data, 0.5 capacity unit will be consumed. Okay, so why this concept of read and write capacity units is there? Because we are not getting a dedicated instance. So how the sizing is done is in terms of read and write capacity units. So here now it is in the provision pretty eligible. So it is provisioning 5 and 5, and as the requirement goes on, it can increase it to the maximum capacity of 40,000 units, which is a huge capacity. So for time being, I'm just going to adjust this to 1 and 1. Okay, fine. So you can encrypt that data. I think somebody asked me a question regarding the CMK. That time I explained this, how it works. So customer managed key and AWS managed key. Customer managed key is your key. You can upload and use it for creating data key. Fine. So that is, so I'm creating this table, employee, and the partition key is employee number. So let me just create it. So if I go to items now, so currently there are no items. So I will create item. So I will say employee number, say 100. And now I can append, I will say employee name. I will just Srikanth. Okay. And I will save it. Now I want to add another item. So this is the only key which is required. Append. I will say employee name. Say Rajesh. And I will say not salary. No. we'll say append number, and I'll say salary. Something. If I save it. Now, this is NoSQL kind of database. So there is no definite structure. So first record, I just added employee number and employee name. The second item, I added employee name and salary. Third item, I can add as name, a number, name, and department ID. So there is no definite structure to it, right? So that is why it is called NoSQL database. What are the use cases of this? Any data you get in terms of key value pairs, for example, social networking, gaming, where you require really fast access to that data, then this is the way this is the way you can use it. So it's a NoSQL database. Okay. Now, how do you query this? There are two methods. One is scan and other is query. So scan will scan all the table. Okay, so it will scan all the table. You can add filters, and you can add, say, for example, employee number equals 100. Scan. So this scan operation is going to go through all the table and give you the value. So in case of scan, you are consuming a lot of read capacity units. Okay. But what happens in query? Query is restricted to your primary key or maybe a sort key. Okay. So first you need to give this, and then you can add a filter. Okay. So query will be a little faster, but query you need to give this primary key or composite primary key and then add particular filters. But query operation will be fast. So if I now say attribute, yeah, suppose if I say this and if I say query, so this query will be very fast. Now employee number, I need to give it here. Okay, compared to scan, because scan is going to go through all the items in the table and give you the result. Okay, fine. So that is about the items, how to do this. How do you insert the items into the table? Now this is a NoSQL. So there are certain tools which will give you an interface similar to SQL, but otherwise you will have to use AWS CLI or SDK. Now, in terms of Python, if you are using Python, there is a actually SDK called as Boto. So you need to just do pip install Boto, and then you can take a JSON file and upload it. So there are some standard calls in which in using those you can upload that data to a table. Okay, fine. So that is about. Now you have the metrics. These are coming from the CloudWatch, and you will see the read capacity, write capacity units. You can also create alarms on that. So this is again a CloudWatch feature. Capacity, you have on demand and provision capacity. So on demand, if you take it, what will happen is, depending upon the requirement, how you are reading it and from the table or writing it to the table, it will auto scale. Okay. Then there is a concept of indexes. So there is a concept of global secondary index and local secondary index. So index, I think you may be knowing. So the global, there is a local secondary index, means you have a primary key or maybe some sort key, and you want to have you want to access data fast, so that you create indexes on another keys. Then those are called indexes. So there are two types of indexes. One are called local indexes, which you need to create when you create a table, and global indexes you can create it afterwards. So you can give a different key, and that will become. So suppose here, if I say uh, primary key, so this is my index. I want to give the primary key as this. I'll create an index. Okay, so this index will be created. So how it is used? When you query, when you create an index, the particular index will appear there, and you can query on it on that index. So currently here, if you go items query, if you see, it is only on table, but when this index gets created, you will see this index, and you can query on that index. Okay, so there are two types of indexes, local and global. Uh, then again, backups are taken in terms of snapshots. So just like your RDS, and they will be retained for 30 days. Okay. Uh, global tables is again a concept where the data is copied to another region, and the other region will act as a read replica in terms of if you compare it with relational database service. Okay, so that is the concept of global tables. Now, for global table to be enabled, you have to enable the streams. So, what is a stream? So, let me explain this concept. Now, those who are from database background, there is something called as internal triggers we use DB inside. So, there are triggers which are kept inside the database. And suppose particular record is updated, this gets triggered, and you can perform some task. So instead of that, what you have in DynamoDB is there is a stream you have to create. This is your table, and when you write something to the table, then when you implement stream, now what happens is this data, whatever changes are happening in the table, they are available to you for 24 hours. So 24 hours is the window. Okay. So suppose I update some item in the table, then it will come to stream. It will have that this item has been updated. Now, suppose you want to trigger any function, say lambda function on this. Okay. Then you need to have a stream implemented. So stream, from the stream, there will be an event. Just like in S3, we have an event of uploading certain object to S3. Similarly, you will have a event here in streams that particular item is updated, and then this lambda function will trigger. So that is the use case of streams. Since this is a NoSQL database, there is no built-in triggers, so we will have to go with this mechanism of streams. Okay, so only for 24 hours it will be available, otherwise it will be dropped. Okay, so to use global table, I need to enable streams. So if I go ahead, it will enable streams, and then I will be able to create a replica in another region. So I'm not going to do that. I can add it, and then basically the replica will be created in another region. So that is how the global tables will operate. So it will have a read replica in another region. Okay, so this is basically related to the DynamoDB. Now there is a service called as DAX. So this is again a in-memory caching, what you can have in front of a table. So you will have to create a DAX cluster, and if you need better performance, you need to create this cluster. Okay. So like we have Elastic Cache for relational database, you have DAX, which is a service from AWS. It is not an open source. It is DynamoDB is their own product. So they have this service DAX. Okay, so these are few services you should know. The deep dive of this is basically covered in the developer section. So there are a lot of hands-on exercises those can be done. Okay, that is about the DynamoDB. Yeah, any questions on this? Fine. Okay, so next service, what I'm going to cover is the Route 53 service. Now this is the DNS service, domain name service. Now actually what has happened is I had a registered domain, but that has expired. Now I have applied for another domain yesterday, but they are saying it is going to take 48 hours. Otherwise I could have shown you the complete process, but anyhow I'm going to explain it how it works. So don't worry on that. So Route 53 is a DNS service. So what is basically a DNS service? It's fundamentally it is name to address mapping. Right? It is very important service. If you handle it in-house, there are a lot of complexities. So that is why AWS has got this Route 53 as a service. Now, why Route 53 is important is it gives you, when you update any records, these are reflected over the internet at a very fast rate compared to other cloud providers. That is one advantage. And then there are a lot of related to record, there are a lot of configurations you can make. So I'll just show you that what do I mean by those configurations which are not available so easily on other cloud providers. Okay, so let me show you how Route 53 looks like. So when you register, you want to run a website, then there are actually three parties involved or three entities involved. One is your domain registrar. Am I audible? Yeah, but it's facing some issue. Am I audible?
Yes, Srikanth.
Okay, somebody ping me. Okay, fine. Okay, maybe some local issue there. So there are three entities. One is the domain registrar. Second is the DNS provider. Third is the hosting provider. Okay. So these entities can be same or they can be completely different. So AWS can give you all of this, right? So they are also domain registrars. The DNS is basically Route 53. So why the name Route 53 is because it works on port 53, UDP port 53. That is why the name is Route 53. DNS service. Hosting provider, you can always provision an EC2 instance and host your website or applications, right? So all of these are provided by AWS, but they can be different. Say, for example, domain register can be GoDaddy. For example, DNS can be the AWS, and this can be AWS or any other combination. So you can do that. So while configuring, they need not be same. So here, what I'm going to showcase is I will show you how the records are created and what are the different types of records you can create in Route 53. So here, if I go to registered domains, let me check whether. So currently, I don't have the registered domain. My request is pending. So this is the name I wanted to register. But all these things, actions I have taken, but I received a mail. It will take 48 hours. So we'll have to wait. So, but I will show you all the process. So once you register a domain, so how do you register a domain? You can register a domain. So you can search for your availability of the domain. Suppose, for example, account was a Sikan was already taken. So we'll just check this one. This is available. So you can just add it to a cart and buy it. You can buy it from anywhere, GoDaddy, AWS, etc. So once that is done, that is the domain part. Now let us come to the creation of the zone record. So suppose, assuming that I'm the owner of one domain. Now what I need to do is I create a zone record. So if I say create hosted zone, and so my website is say cloud workshops.net. Okay. And this is suppose really a publicly hosted zone. So testing, and that's it. So I'm creating. So once I create a zone record,
what is that private to hosted zone, Srikanth? It's internal.
Private is for internal thing, internal DNS. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So public, once but for traffic to be routed, I really have to be owner of this domain. Okay. Otherwise, if I type www.cloudworkshop.net and if I say here publicly hosted, but there is no registration, then traffic will not come to me. But the steps I'm just explaining. So suppose this is a publicly hosted zone. Now once I create this zone record, I will be given this 3 name servers. Okay. So what one needs to do is update these name servers in the, so suppose in the registered domain, you will see the name servers. So, or if you have it in GoDaddy, GoDaddy will also have a control plane, and in that there is a provision to update these name servers. So once you have done that, so put these name servers there, because whenever I type www.cloudworkshop.net, the whoever the provider is, it is going to see these name servers and divert that request to a particular name server. Okay. So that once this is done, then I can go ahead and create the record sets. So let me just create a record set. Now here, suppose first of all, I will go with simple routing record set. So I'll say define record name. So www, and that's it. It is a type of record. And suppose
to get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the $399 plan and grow your skills immensely.
value or the traffic to it. This is now IP address of other value depending upon the record type is format. Okay. And yes, record. So there are now lot of things. This is actually modified. So earlier there used to be a very simple interface where you can give the IP address. Now it is IP address value depending on the record type. So if I do that, I can specify the IP address. Suppose I'm going to go to EC2. And suppose this is my instance here. Assume that I'm running the web server here. Now I can put this public IP in here. Okay. And then I can define a simple record set. So whenever some user goes to www.cloudworkshop.in, this is a record, and he will resolve it to this IP address. Okay. So I think the steps are clear. For first, you need to register a domain, then you create a zone record. Zone record will give you name servers, and those name servers you will have to update into the from whom you have purchased the domain, and then you can add the A record. Okay, A record is name to address translation record. That is what is meant by A record. And then when somebody types www.cloudworkshop.net, he will basically hit this IP address. Okay, so this is a simple record. Now there are various other types of records that you can create. So let me go through those. So what we have done is a simple record. Now there is a weighted geolocation latency failover. Let us discuss this. So weighted record. So how it is used? So suppose first we have done is very simple record. So www cloud workshops.net. Suppose somebody hits this website, HTTP, then we have put a record. So it will be a IP address, right? Now suppose I want to put a weighted record. So now let us consider a scenario where Fidelity is in the process of migration to AWS. And you have a web server sitting in your premises, and you have set up one web server in AWS. Now, initially in the migration process, you want to divide the traffic. 50% should go to internal, 50% should go to web. So that is that weighted record. Okay, so weighted. Then you have the, so here this is the weighted record. Then you have geolocation record. So use when you want to route traffic based on the location of your users. So there are users coming in from India. Now you want to land them on a particular web server so that India related stuff is there. So you can do that in a geolocation. Another one is latency. So what is latency? Use when you have resources in multiple regions and you want to route traffic to the region that provides best latency for you. Okay, so I have servers in different regions, but my user is logging in from Singapore. So for him, which will give you best latency, that will be the result. That will give the result according to that. Okay, and then so these are different facilities which are available in Route 53, which are not available in other cloud providers setups. So that is the advantage. Now, okay, so latency is there, and then failover. So failover is like you set up a primary, you set up secondary, and just like your, so here so you have a primary web server, you have a secondary web server. They may be in different regions, okay? Because at a DNS level, it is a global service. It is not a region specific service. So it is the duty of AWS to keep it running across regions. Now I can set up a health check on this. Health check is also there. So I keep on pinging on port 80 and look for my home page. As soon as this is my traffic bit, right? So it is similar to your load balancer setup. Your load balancer also had a health check, right? So it keeps on pinging your EC2 instance, and then if it fails, it will divert traffic to the next EC2 instance, right? So that is how you get a lot of options in Route 53, right, to set this up. So route, now how do you build the redundancy and fault tolerance? So we can do it. We have seen the scenario. Suppose this is region 1. So within a region, how we can do it? It's something like this. You have ELB, you have auto scaling, and you have the individual EC2 instances. So this is scalable, this is fault tolerant at a region level. Now you have a similar setup in another region. So you have another region. Okay. Now this is the ELB, this is a load balancer. This is ELB. Now you have the same setup here. Now you want to build region-wise redundancy. So how you can do it with the help of DNS? You can do it. So DNS you can use it. You can configure primary and secondary kind of scenario. So you can primary page divert traffic to secondary. So this is how you build region-wide redundancy. Fine. So that is about Route 53. So in short, it is a name to address resolution service, but there are many types of record sets you can create within Route 53. Any questions on Route 53? Fine. Oh, free norm. Okay. I'll try that. Freenom.com. Okay. That is a good input. Freenom.com. So it's absolutely free, Abhishek. But you should get a chance to update the NS records. So that I will have to
They
check.
give it free
Fine.
for
So
I think till 12 months. For 12 months they give it
Achha,
for free. So
free.
you can have a try.
Okay, I will try that. But only thing is that site should give me a chance to update the NS records, NS the name server record. Possibly
I'm
they will
not
not do that. I will check
maybe
offline. Maybe
you
that's
can
good
try.
input. Yeah, I will try. Fine. So concept is clear. What steps need to be followed, right? Uh, Fine. So let us go to another service, and that is Lambda, right? So what is Lambda? Uh, Lambda is called function as a service or a serverless. It is also called FAS, function as a service, or serverless service. Okay. So serverless service is so what you do is you write a function, and on a particular event, this function will be executed. Where it will execute, it will be executed somewhere in the AWS environment, so that server you are not managing. So it will get executed on some server in form of a container, and then whatever results are there, you will be able to see that in the CloudWatch logs or however you want to process. Okay. So that is why it is called serverless. Serverless means there is a server, but you are not managing that server. And how you are built? You are built on the memory consumed and the memory consumed and how much time your function was running. Okay. So depending upon that, you are built. So Lambda function is not used for writing a full-fledged application, but what is the use is basically on a particular event you want to take certain action, then that is useful. Okay. So I'll show you a small demo. I think yesterday we discussed that use case. So let us try to implement that using Lambda function. Okay, so create a function. Now here you can write the function from scratch or use a blueprint. There are a lot of blueprints already available. People have already written some good Lambda functions. You can make use of those. So there is an app repository also. Deploy sample with AWS serverless app repository. So those are also there. Now, what we'll be doing, we'll be writing it from scratch. So let me just write Lambda function test. Let us select the platform. Let us select 3.8. Let me try to write create a Lambda function using Python. Now, what we want to do is there is a S3 bucket, and when some file gets uploaded to Lambda function, it should print a message. That is the simple thing what we want to achieve. So for this to happen, actually the Lambda function should have a role which will be able to read from the S3 file, right? S3 bucket. So that is why create a new role with basic Lambda permissions, use the existing role, create a new role from the policy template. So let me just try that. Policy templates are, so S3 object read only permissions. So this is the one, and I will say Lambda role. Okay. Let me create a function. Okay. So this is my test function. Now I want to add a trigger. So what is my trigger? Trigger is basically file getting uploaded to S3 bucket, right? So body JSON return. Okay. Return status code hello from Lambda. Okay, so this is the Lambda function. Now let me add a trigger. I want to add a trigger of S3. Let me search for that bucket. Yeah. So I will trigger it for all object events to make it simple. And this is recursion innovation. If you write object, if your function writes objects to this, ensure that you are using different for input and output. So that's fine. We are not writing anything. So I will acknowledge that. Okay, so this is now done. So it is returning. So now let us test it. What we can do before actually doing it, we can test it. So let me just, for this to happen, we can, yeah, create configure test event. So this is my test event. This is just a key value pairs, and to test it, I will just, so I will just name it test event. Okay, just create that. Now I want to test it, so I will just test this function if everything is working fine. Now I have tested it. Now what it does, it goes to the CloudWatch logs. So if I go to logs, it will actually open CloudWatch logs. So I think we referred to these logs in the CloudWatch discussion. This is how one of the ways to use logs. Okay. So this is my log string, and okay. So this is what has happened. Now this has ran for 1.15 milliseconds, and so minimum build duration is always 100 milliseconds. Now what it is showing, so start request ID, and okay. So start request ID is this, and this thing is this. Okay. So this has successfully triggered this. Now what I'm going to do, define and return. So here, let me write something. Okay. So now let us save it. And now let us go to S3 and uh, let us upload a file. Now I can use this tab. Let me go to S3. Here, so let us upload a file. Now, okay, so let's see. Let us go to logs. So there is Which one is the latest? Okay, so this is the message. File got loaded. You can do much more meaningful things here, but this is just a demo. So when I uploaded a file, this function got executed and it has printed a message. Okay. Okay,
But
so I think
here
you
it
should.
will show us only in the logs, or can we make an SMS, like a message can be also
Yeah.
sent from.
Yes. You'll have to code it in the Lambda function. So there is through the SNS, there is actually you have certain functions you can write in Python, and then you can do it. So
Okay.
here, if you go to SDK, so if you go to the documentation, okay, so there are let me just go to SDKs. So these are the languages which are supported. So Python is one of them. The package is called as Boto. Once you install that, all the services are accessible. So if you want to send a message through SNS, you can code it in Python. Okay. This is the Boto package, and just do pip install Boto, and all these functions will be available to you. Depending on what language you use. So here, if you see the SNS should be there. Yeah, should be there somewhere. CS, SMS is there, SNS is there. Okay. So if you go through this, there will be examples of how of import Moto and then how to send the SNS notification. Okay, so you can code it that way. Is it clear? How do you do that? Hello? Who asked me that question?
Yes.
Okay. There is a question. Yeah, you can do that. You have to do it through CLI. You can associate an event programmatically. Fine. So that is about the Lambda function. Okay. Now I will be touching upon, but I will not be going into those details. There are services related to the container services, that is ECS. Okay. Actually, uh, what AWS does is they have leveraged the Docker's concept. So those who have worked on Dockers, it's basically uh, uh, you'll have to install a package on Linux platform to basically you can do yum install, and there are certain Docker packages you can install, and then you can create those Docker containers on your Linux machine. So it's the same concept that has been leveraged by AWS. So instead of doing it going to the EC2 instance and doing it manually, they are given you a different kind of setup altogether, where you need not have to manage the EC2 instances, underlying EC2 instances yourself. Okay, so there are certain services related to that. So those who are interested can go through them. These are ECS if I go to ECS service, where is that? Elastic Container Service. Okay. So this is the service. Then there is another service called EKS, where there is a Kubernetes. There is an open source tool, and you can manage the containers using that tool. So for that also there is another service called EKS. So we will not be going into these details, but here you can create a cluster. So here you will see EKS is the service, and this is the ECS service. Okay. So it is basically leveraging the same concept as that of Docker containers. Fine. I think we have pretty much covered everything what is required. So we want to take a break and come back, or you want to discuss exam and then close. Either is fine. How do we do it?
You can go ahead.
Any suggestion?
Take a break.
Break? You need a break? Break?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fine. We'll take 20 minutes break. When we'll come back, we'll just discuss about the exam. I will send you one book also, and then I will just give some tips how to prepare for the exam. Okay, and then we'll close. Fine. Fine. So we'll come back at 3:30 to 3:35.
Please enroll our general membership for $399 plan to get access of all the parts.
Along with that, you can access our other tutorials such as Docker, Ansible, Jenkins, Terraform, Splunk, AWS, Azure, and various other DevOps related premium tutorials with our channel membership. If you would have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@devopsschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the $399 plan, and grow your skills immensely. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Thanks for watching.